All right, hey everybody. Welcome back to the sixth episode of the Codex Comics podcast. I'm Michael.
And this is Nick.
And so just jump right in for some stuff that came out this week. I'm going to start by talking about Venom issue 155. It's really, really awesome to see Eddie Brock as Venom again. And that's what this whole series has been so far since they went back to the legacy numbering. And it's awesome seeing Eddie as Venom again. We also see Lee Price, the guy that was Venom right before Eddie Brock got the symbiote back. Interested to see where that whole story goes. I'm seeing him maybe trying to reclaim the symbiote or something like that. But the big reveal at the end of this issue is, well, we also see that Parker Industries has fallen. Eddie Brock looks out the window and he sees a billboard that has that on it. Big reveal, stuff leading to Spider-Man, and I like seeing the connections between the two series. Because Venom can't exist without Spider-Man, so seeing those connections is awesome. But anyway, the big reveal at the end is Kraven the Hunter, which is really exciting. Gives so many vibes back to the old Spider-Man Kraven stories when Spider-Man had the black suit, and I'm super excited for that, for this confrontation between those two characters, and just getting Spider-Man and Venom back in this shared story again. So now, Nick, what do you want to talk about now?
Well, I'm going to go to Batman the Dawnbreaker, which is the next title out of the Dark Knight Battle series. Basically, this is Batman as Green Lantern, and this story shows Batman losing his parents and how Green Lantern Ring finds him. What's really neat about this issue is he doesn't create any constructs of the ring. He creates just darkness, which is kind of cool because, he can just think the darkness, and you can see panels within the story that black out basically the page. You can see this with Penguin in certain spots, but ultimately, Bruce Wayne loses his morality basically and just blacks out his whole universe. He then is transported then to Earth Zero by the Batman, the Man Who Laughs. But next issue is going to be The Drowned, which is going to feature a Batman Aquaman type character. But what's really interesting is it's a female. What are your thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, so far these Dark Knights, the evil Batman, they've all been a combination of Batman and another character. So it's always still Bruce Wayne. So it's really interesting to see that this is a combination of like Batman and perhaps Mira is what we're guessing. So it's going to be interesting to see how they tell that story, whether it's going to be like Batgirl or something like that. But that kind of doesn't really fit into the whole, these are Bruce Wayne's nightmares. So unless it is, because it so far it's always been that some of that character is still in there. With like the Flash, with the Red Death, Barry Allen was still attached to this Batman, to the Red Death. He was still in there. So maybe this is Mira, but some of Batman's attached to her. And that's kind of my theory on that. I guess we'll see about that next week.
Also with this issue, it came with a connector pin. All the issues that are tied in with the Batman characters come with pins. We forgot to mention that. And I'll swing it back to Mike as he talks about Batman 32 and the big reveal in that.
All right, so Batman 32 came out. It's the conclusion to the War of the Jokes and Riddles, which has been going on for quite a few months now. And we finally get the big reveal at the end, what Batman's darkest secret is, and Catwoman's answer to his marriage proposal. So first thing, the reason behind why he's telling the story about his dark secret, it turns out that he tried to kill the Riddler. And the Joker sticks his hand out in front of the knife and stops Batman from killing. Interesting twist, not really what I expected. I expected it to be Batman had the option to kill one of these to stop all this mass murdering from happening. That's what I expected to happen. Kind of actually completely different from that. But anyway, so at the end we get Catwoman's answer, and surprisingly she says yes. Wasn't something that I was expecting. I really thought the story was going to go Batman had some actual really deep dark secret and she was going to say no. But then she says yes, so they're going to get married, I guess. We'll see how that goes. Um, but I think it's an interesting character arc for Batman, a character that we don't usually see go through arcs. He's usually always just the same character, but seeing him actually strive for happiness and everything, it's really cool to see. Especially that being this like still in New 52 character, where everything was more dark and everything. But next issues, we see Batman go on some weird illegal journey that like Justice League and the Robins are real mad about. He's bare chested with a horse and a shotgun. Should be fun. So yeah, Nick, any thoughts on that reveal?
Nothing really. Basically, this happened because you do remember the button, right, Mike?
Yeah, how could I forget? I mean, that was the whole Thomas Wayne telling Bruce not to be Batman was awesome. While Thomas is still Batman in that world, kind of weird, but it's still a really heartfelt moment and leads into this arc.
Well, also, basically, Thomas told him to not be Batman and to be happy. But it's interesting that he chose Catwoman, who's basically she's both, I should say. Like she can relate to Bruce Wayne and she can relate to Batman at the same time. So maybe I don't think Batman's gonna hang up his cow just to get married.
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing Batman hang up a cowl anytime soon. I mean, I say it all the time, but DC loves to shove Batman down my throat, and so there's no way that Batman's going to get married and we're not going to have any more Batman titles. That's just not realistic for DC, especially one of their like top selling books. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how King tells this story, um, and we'll just have to see what happens going forward. All right, so Nick, you want to talk about some Star Wars stuff?
Absolutely, Mike. This week we got Star Wars number 37, which covers the squadron of stormtroopers that's been running around here. This story actually kind of finishes an arc. Basically, it focuses on Sarge, who is the head stormtrooper of this group of troopers. Basically, it gives a little bit of backstory on him and how he met Darth Vader and how he got his lightsaber and his reputation. Basically, it ends where Sarge gets rescued by a squad who somehow gets defeated by the Rebel Alliance. But next issue, we can definitely see we're going back to a planet that was revealed in Rogue One, which is Jeddah. The planet, why we're going back to this planet is Luke Skywalker finds out there was an ancient Jedi temple here. So maybe Luke Skywalker will learn a thing or two from this temple. More on this to come. The next Star Wars title that also came out this week is Darth Vader number 6, which covers Darth Vader first meeting the Inquisitors from Star Wars Rebels. Basically, he meets them in the Jedi Temple. The Grand Inquisitor basically got into the Jedi Temple by the Emperor's orders and started to learn all the holocrons and all the data from there. Where Darth Vader then meets him and treats him as an intruder. Basically, they fight a little bit, and then the Emperor shows up and tells Vader, like, these are the good guys for the Empire. And basically, they go on a mission to hunt down these sort of exiled Jedi or Jedi that just kind of pulled away from society in a sense. Um,
All right, so these two Star Wars stories that are going on, it's really the stuff that I want to see with Star Wars. I love the idea of seeing Vader's whole mission to hunt down the remaining Jedi. I think that's a really cool story, and there is stuff to tell there. Like it's not like they're just pulling a random story out of nowhere. Like this story has bases and established canon where it makes sense to tell this story, and can really lead to some interesting stuff. Seeing some different types of Jedi and like some of the different reasons for why they're in exile, possibly. Also, with Luke going back to Jeddah and an old Jedi temple there, this is something I've been begging to see out of Star Wars material. Is Luke learning about the old Jedi Order and basically him learning his legacy, which is kind of ironic with the whole Marvel's legacy thing for their superhero titles. But I mean, that's what Luke has to learn right now. He has to learn his legacy and how to train Jedi, what the different Jedi codes and everything are. Because I really don't think that Yoda felt the need to spend time telling Luke, "You're not allowed to get married." I really think that's the last of what was on Yoda and Obi-Wan's mind at the time when they were training him. So seeing Luke learn this kind of stuff, and even learn some dark secrets of the Jedi, really excited to see some of that stuff happen, and just excited where all the Star Wars material is going. So now I'm going to give it back to Nick to talk about one of his titles that he's crazy about this week, Warframe.
All right, Warframe. All right, for those who don't know what Warframe is, basically think of Destiny in a sense. For those who played Destiny, if you haven't played Destiny, basically think of you have basically the Tenna, who are a race of people, and they only want to live peaceful lives. But unfortunately, the Grineer, basically the bad guys, want to. They're trying to find Orcan technology, basically to advance themselves and make themselves more powerful. This story tells about Excalibur, who is the biggest name in Warframe. It is like one of the first frames you can get in this game. Basically, it shows him fighting against Captain Vor, who's another big name. He is the one of the most uh, recognizable generals in the Grineer army. Um, it shows Excalibur and Vor fighting over this field, and they go back and forth. This the combat reminded me of actually playing the game with Excalibur's ultimate, which is his exalted blade, and basically Excalibur defeats most of the Grineer, but it cuts the battle short because we don't know exactly what happens at the end, because then it kind of switches over to another character. But I'm led to believe that Excalibur was captured by the Grineer. So the Lotus, who is the overseer of everything that the Tenno does, she sends Mag, another frame, to assist Excalibur in defeating these Grineer. We'll see actually what happens in issue 2, and so far it's quite awesome. Mike, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see the different hands that Image puts, or the different things Image puts their hands into, I guess. And I mean, Image always does phenomenal jobs. I didn't actually read this issue, but I flipped through it, and the art's phenomenal. Definitely something I'm interested in checking out. I did play like a little bit of Warframe, like when it first came out, um, but some of these multiplayer games just have never been my thing. But I'm excited that these different titles are coming out that aren't just superhero stuff, that we can get and read different types of genres and stories.
All right, so some of the other titles that came out this week, we have Green Arrow number 32, which is the last issue to the Dark Knights Metal tie-in. We have Iron Fist number 73, which focuses on Iron Fist fighting Sabretooth. This comes with a cover that switches to the first appearance of Sabretooth. Xenoscope has a title called Robin Hood. It's on issue 3 of their limited series. We also have X-Men Gold number 13, which focuses on Mojoverse and how all the teams are going to be tied together. This title is also with X-Men Blue.
Also, we got Superman 32. Cool story with Destro, the Lois Lane thing. It's an interesting story, but I'm just excited to get out of these filler issues that have been going on. Superman's kind of had some filler issues since like issue 25-ish, and they've all been really good stories, but I'm excited to get back into more prominent storylines. So next, the next issue, which comes out in 2 weeks, will be Imperious Lex. We get to go to Apocalypse and see like a Game of Thrones ish who gets Darkseid's throne, which I'm really excited for. To getting back into these action comics has really been knocking out of the park lately, and I'm excited for Superman to get back to where it was at the start of the new, not the new 52, at the start of Rebirth, where these stories were really impactful for the mythology of Superman. And that's why I'm excited to get into this Lex Luthor thing. And especially with Doomsday Clock and Lex Luthor probably going to be evil again, I'm excited to see how that story goes.
So one thing about this is, I wonder what's going to happen when Darkseid gets back to normal age and he sees Lex Luthor on his throne. Do you think there'll be an epic battle over Apocalypse or some type of storyline?
Well, yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that because in last week's issue of Wonder Woman, we saw Darkseid go from a baby to like a toddler, teenager age. We saw him get aged up. And we know from the previews guide that by the end of this Wonder Woman arc, Darkseid is going to be back to full power again. And presumably even more powerful because he keeps stealing God's powers. So yeah, I really think that's where this story is going to go. I think Wonder Woman's going to beat Darkseid, and he's going to retreat to Apocalypse, and he's going to see Lex Luthor sitting on his throne. And I'm excited to see that fight because Superman's going to help Lex Luthor, but I think it'd be funny if Superman's like, no, Lex, you got yourself into this, you're going to get yourself out. So that's going to be really fun, and I think that's how we're going to get Lex Luthor without his Apocalypse Mother Box powered suit thing, and back into hopefully some classic Lex Luthor power armors. So also, Marvel had some pretty cool stuff this week. Pretty much all their issues ish had these awesome lenticular covers. They're really really cool. You have to check them out. Like they're hard to describe. They're breathtaking. Also, we had Batman White Knight, which is going to be kind of an interesting story. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's just a mini series, Elseworldy type of thing, and I like DC getting their hands in these different Elseworlds tales. Marvel also this week had Captain Phasma issue 3 came out, and I've said it before. This Captain Phasma series is really good. It's nothing it's nothing that's really changing the Star Wars universe. It's not something that if you miss this, you're not going to know what's going on. But it's one of those things that really redeems the character of Captain Phasma from what happened to her in The Force Awakens. She's ruthless and cunning, and it's really great to see this character how she should have been in The Force Awakens, and it's awesome.
All right. Also, that came out this week. We got Walking Dead number 172. And also, to go with the Walking Dead story, we have Here's Negan hardcover, which originally came out of the Image Plus magazines. Also, a funny title that came out this week, we got Harley and Ivy meeting Archie's Betty and Veronica, which gave me a laugh all the same. Probably the best scene out of that, I just laughed hysterically, was when Betty and Veronica put on the costumes of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And then the original showed up at the party and they went, "Hey, look, it's us! It's us as we should be," or whatever it was. All right. Also, featured in like every DC comic, there is one page featuring a Doomsday Clock picture. I'll swing it back to Mike as he explains what is on this picture.
We get to see Batman reading Rorschach's journal from The Watchmen. I'm so excited. Batman reading Rorschach's journal is going to be I think, a really key part to this whole story. That's kind of how Batman's probably going to learn about Dr. Manhattan. And I think Batman's going to read this and he's going to be like, guys, this has some sort of tie to this weird button that Flash and I found that we didn't tell you guys about that we probably should have. So now here's this journal, and this Ozymandias guy is crazy. There's also this other guy that has these weird cosmic powers. And I think that's kind of how we're going to get informed about all this. But it also leads me to believe that Doomsday Clock is going to take place after all of the events of Watchmen. Batman reading this journal means that Rorschach is dead. Because that's the only way he can get his hands on this journal. So I think this kind of lets us to know where this story is going to fit in at. And just Batman reading Rorschach's journal is going to be killer. Nick, words on that?
Oh man, it's going to be interesting how the journal will play into this. But my thoughts on this, honestly, what if Batman? Of course, he's probably going to figure out what happened. But do you think Batman will condemn all the people of this other world because of what they had to do to keep the secret?
100%. Also, before I talk about that, I also need to say Batman's been reading a lot of dead people's journals lately. With this whole stuff going on Metal and him finding Hawkman's journal, maybe this one will just show up in the Wayne Library too. Anyway, yeah, I think Batman's really going to condemn these people. However, the journal doesn't actually tell the story of what Ozymandias did, really. And because at the end of Watchmen, Rorschach's like, we can't compromise. I have to go tell people about what you did. And that's why Dr. Manhattan kills him at the end, because he's like, you can't tell the world what he did. Otherwise, a lot more people are going to die. Mm-hmm. And Batman is definitely going to take Rorschach's side on this. I'm curious to see what Batman's thoughts on Rorschach is, because they are very similar characters, detectives and the dark, shadowy characters. But like, depends on who was writing Batman, because if Frank Miller's writing him, Batman's a psychopath. But usually Batman's, rather sane. He's not psychotic on the level that Rorschach is. So I'm excited to see Batman's whole thoughts on Rorschach, and if these characters are ever going to actually meet. I'm curious to see how many Watchmen characters we get in this universe other than Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan.
All right, so picks of the week. I'll start with my picks of the week. My comic pick has to be Warframe because that's probably, I don't know. It was a perfect title. It wasn't too heavy on the story, and it wasn't too heavy on really anything. It was just kind of a primer to see what's to come. My favorite trade paperback of this week has to be Blackest Night, because Blackest Night was how I started getting into the big scheme of things. And one thing about Blackest Night is when all the dead characters came back, I'm like, oh, I didn't know these characters were dead. So it was kind of cool to see who died, and then it was just a really good story. Probably one of Jeff Jones' best work, I think. But I, just, I can't really say anything more about that because. But I'll swing it back to Mike as he says about his picks.
Comic pick for this week, it has to be Venom 155. Because it was just a really great read, and like I said earlier, I love seeing Eddie Brock back as Venom and kind of getting back involved in Peter Parker's universe. The big Kraven reveal at the end is awesome, and we're getting back some really classic Spider-Man villains, aside from Dan Slott only ever using Green Goblin all the time. So we're getting some more other old Spider-Man villains back, and I'm really excited for all of that. But also, I mentioned earlier about Marvel's awesome lenticular covers this week. Venom has an awesome cover. As much as people, and myself included, hate Brand New Day, the cover for Brand New Day was awesome, where Peter Parker's swinging and he's putting on his mask. Awesome cover. The lenticular shows that cover, but then it turns into Venom, and it's a really, really awesome cover. Definitely check that out. My trade pick for the week is going to be the first volume of the New 52 Batman and Robin story. I've said it before, Damian Wayne is one of my favorite characters in comics right now. And so I've been trying to go back through and read a lot of the back stuff that I missed. This New 52 stuff, it came right after Batman came back from the dead, after Damian was trained by Dick Grayson for a while. And what's so great about this series, and just Damian as a character in general, he has a character arc. Like Batman, it's really hard to change his character. They're trying to right now with him proposing to Catwoman and everything, but Batman at its core is basically always the same character. But watching Batman train Damian starts off as this ruthless killer trained by the League of Assassins. And we see him grow to where he's at now. He's still arrogant and cocky and all these things, but he doesn't have the bloodlust like he did. And it's just really awesome to see this great character arc in the comics.
Okay, so getting into the special events coming up, this weekend is Battle Royals D&D. It starts at 1 o'clock. Basically, what a Battle Royal is for Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, you create a character with certain specifications that the DM set forth, and basically you throw all the characters in a ring, and basically you battle till there's one victor. I heard they're giving away D&D boosters as prizes, but don't quote me on that. Um, Anyway, at 12 o'clock, if people do come early, you can get some help building character if you're not too familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. The DMs will help you build a character. Do remember, this date is Saturday, October 7th at at 1 o'clock. If you do come at noon, you can get help building a D&D character. Also, I'll bring it back to Mike as he talks about the other events.
All right, so some other events we got going on. The Mount of the Wishes Charity Con, which is Saturday, October 21st from 10 to 5. It's a small local convention for charity, selling comic books and just some other geeky, nerdy comic book related stuff. And then also on October 28th is Halloween Comic Fest. Different publishers are going to send some comics to give out for free on this day, and just be a fun Halloween themed comic book event. So hope to see you next week, and when we get the next issue of Metal, Oz Effect, and Lonely Place of Living. So make sure you tune in.